Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have to be honest, I don't know what episode number this is going to be. I really don't, because hopefully when you're listening to this, I'm exploring Europe or something, and you know, this podcast has gone to hell or something because I'm not there to keep track of it. I don't really know what our plans are for the next 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We got a lot going on. I do anyway. Tim and John are just going to be bored at home, so that's great.
Yeah, no, Daniel's just going to be bored in another country. Exploring Europe isn't going to, yeah. I'm just going around to explore. It sounds like you're backpacking across Europe, Daniel.
So, I like to ignore Tim, so I'm going to keep doing that. I am
Everyone
Daniel Brown, and I'm here with...
Tim Baker.
And John Stuart.
Oh man, we also have a really special guest with us. Every one of our guests is super special. I can't say it enough. Mr. Kyle Torpey, am I saying your name right? Thanks for joining us today.
That is correct. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I want to ask Kyle about himself and his work and everything, but I just don't feel comfortable moving forward with Tim and John all mixed up like that. So, you know, listen to all of our past episodes and you'll know what was wrong there.
You ruined everything.
All right, we're done. All right, Kyle, so I'll be honest, this is my first time meeting you, and we're kind of off the cuff here. We're just here to have fun and talk about, you know, about you and about, I don't know, philosophy, Bitcoin, whatever happens to come up. So let's just start with yourself, Kyle. Tell us where you're from, what you do, and your favorite kind of cereal.
Sure. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a full-time Bitcoin writer or journalist, I guess. Mostly writing for Bitcoin Magazine, and then sometimes for Coin Journal and CoinGecko.
Okay.
I found out about Bitcoin in like 2011. I think, whenever the Gawker article came out about the Silk Road. If everyone remembers that.
Yeah.
And thought it was a really dumb idea, and so I wanted to see who these idiots were that thought they could get away with buying drugs on the internet. And then I kept researching it and kind of went down the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole.
Everyone else does.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I started writing probably, I guess the end of 2013 was when I was doing a search engine optimization before I got into Bitcoin.
Okay, nice. So why did you pick writing? Is it just something you were good at and you liked Bitcoin and you said, let's put them together? Do you think that writing is something that the Bitcoin world needs more of, more journalism and stuff?
Yeah, I had been researching or just reading about Bitcoin on the forums and stuff for like 2 years, and I'm not a programmer or anything, so I took like Java and C++ in high school, but I wouldn't be able to do anything on the level of the Bitcoin protocol or anything like that. So I was trying to figure out a way how to turn Bitcoin into a job, basically. And I had experience writing mostly SEO copywriting, but experience nonetheless, so I figured I would start writing about what I had learned and start interviewing people and stuff like that. And I think there is a need for more of that in the Bitcoin space. There's plenty of Bitcoin news sites, but not many that are actually doing the research or actually talking to people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Tim and John, but it seems like for us it's a little bit the opposite. Kyle says, oh, he had some experience in copywriting and he started writing for Bitcoin. For us, it's the other way around. We got into Bitcoin and we're like, well, we have to do something. Well, we don't have any podcasting experience, but let's just do it. Let's just try it. and so we did. Does that sound about right, Tim and John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
All right, sweet. Well, hey, Kyle, I heard that you had some interesting writings recently that you wanted to share, which is good because it's not super often that we get to talk to the authors of these stories. You know, we interview people here and there, and I'm sure we've interviewed a couple authors, but most of the time it's just us going through and, you know, pulling it apart and saying how terrible it is because there's all kinds of grammar mistakes or something. I don't know, so...
You can't actually come up with an actual argument.
Yeah, try to make up some serious point that comes out of nowhere. I don't know. So anyway, Kyle, tell us about some of your best work lately, or some of the most interesting stories. What's been going on lately?
Yeah, well, to your point, there's a lot of people just kind of taking the top posts on Reddit and rewriting them and posting them on a news site.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the pieces that I wrote, I think it was published last week, was about chain anchor. If you guys heard, I don't know if you guys heard about that, the MIT project where Peter Todd came out and said they were trying to add KYC and AML compliance to Bitcoin.
I did not. I don't know. I've heard about MIT doing stuff lately and trying to get involved, but I don't know the details. So go for it. What are they?
Sure. So Peter Todd he made a blog post about this document that he said was leaked to him about MIT working on a project called Chain Anchor, where they basically wanted to make it so there would be only permissioned transactions on the Bitcoin network. They're changing that now and saying the current form, or the current purpose of whatever they're working on, is for only like permission blockchains. So like I guess that like the distributed ledger stuff that banks are working on. So basically, Peter Todd was saying they were trying to apply it to Bitcoin, and the guy from MIT was going on Reddit and saying that they weren't trying to make Bitcoin only for permission transactions or anything like that, and they never had any intention to apply it to Bitcoin. So I just went back and forth and talked to both of them. Eventually, the guy from MIT, David, I forget his last name, but it's called MIT Connection Science, is the department, I guess, that he's in, and where this project came from. And on Reddit, he kept saying that there was no intention to apply it to Bitcoin. And then that's what he was saying to me when I was emailing him. And then finally I pointed out part of the paper that came out where it was basically going step by step on how to apply it to Bitcoin. So I was like, I was pointed that out to him, and I was like, you have to, no one's going to buy this if you keep telling me what you're saying. So eventually he said they explored applying it to Bitcoin, but figured out that it wouldn't work or it wouldn't make sense. So that's the story they are telling now.
All right.
And it's hard to know what their real intentions were.
Yeah, that seems really interesting. Do you know, I have a kind of a broader, more, ideological question, but I want to get a few more details before we get into all that.
Sure.
This paper that you say, outlines step by step how they could apply it to Bitcoin, is that pretty solid? I mean, could they really apply this to Bitcoin? I mean, would they need consensus, or is it, well,
the way they would try to get it to apply to Bitcoin is basically they would try to bribe miners into only accepting transactions that were basically KYC and AML compliant.
Okay.
So basically they would only mine transactions that had a real world identity attached to them. And the incentive that they were trying to create would be to, along with the block reward and transaction fees, the miners would also get basically a bribe to only mine transactions that were identified to a real person. And not only that, they wanted to bribe miners to only mine blocks that contain nothing but permission transactions. So they wanted them to, if there wasn't an ID attached to a transaction, they wanted miners to not mine those transactions.
Wow. Okay. So here's the first thing I'll say for anyone listening out there. We have a really old episode, I would guess maybe in the 20s, called Whitelists and Blacklists, where we talked about this. And to be honest, I don't even remember what all we said in there. So go find it, search on our site, you, me, and btc.com, and see what we said about it before, and see if what we're about to come up with matches it well enough. But I know we talked about, like, hey, if you're completely sure that someone is buying and selling child pornography, I mean, should you put them on a blacklist? Should you reject their transactions? And we talked about stuff like that. So, okay, but here's what I have for you, Kyle. And I know, I mean, you're a journalist, and so you try to report the facts more than the opinions. So I don't know how much you want to get into this, but this is fun because Tim and John and I, we just ramble a lot about, regulation and what's good and what's bad, and we may or may not be right, and we might switch opinions every other episode. So it's fun to get another voice in here. And so I want to know if you have any thoughts that you're willing to share, Kyle, about a project like this. Is it good or bad? And regulation in general, is it good or bad?
Sure. So I think the problem is that this attack might be possible. It's not entirely if it would really work. I think instead of having the debate over whether something like this should be applied to Bitcoin, the debate should be how can we make it impossible to censor any transactions on the network, and how can we make it as private and anonymous as possible so these kind of discussions don't really matter. We have to make it so the developers have to make it so every transaction is indistinguishable from another, and every Bitcoin is equal to every other Bitcoin, which gets into like the fungibility aspect of a good money.
Yeah. So have you heard of anyone that's specifically working on that kind of stuff? I mean, I know there are altcoins that are much better suited for that kind of privacy. And, I know there's projects like Shared Coin, different things on Bitcoin that have similar goals. But, I don't know. Is there any news about that lately, about people working on that or projects that aim to increase fungibility?
Yeah, I think as far as something that would apply to Bitcoin specifically, I think Join Market is a interesting project where it basically incentivizes people to use CoinJoin transactions, even if they aren't the one that's trying to mix their coins, because basically they get a fee kind of in a quasi-decentralized manner. The people that are just holding funds on Join Market get a return on those funds that they're storing there because other people are using those funds to mix their coins around, kind of.
Oh.
So that combined with like Blockstream's working on something called confidential transactions, where you're basically encrypting the amounts that are tied to each transaction. So however much, like you could see one address sent money to another address, but you wouldn't know how much they sent. So if you combine those two together, that gets a pretty good level of privacy, but I'm not sure. I imagine something like that would have to be implemented as a sidechain first, and that technology is not really here yet.
I really like your first example there. What was it called? Join Market?
Yeah, it's I think the guy's name's Chris Belcher that developed it. I'm sure there's other people working on it too.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I mean that just seems cool. It's like you're getting interest.
It's almost kind of like a keeping money in a bank account, and you're getting interest on it.
Yeah, because
what the money's being used for is mixing. Yeah.
Yeah, because the coins are helpful for mixing all the rest. That is really cool. And yeah, I don't know if... See, that's the thing in Bitcoin. I was about to say, like, I hope it comes around soon, and I hope it's useful and stuff. But I will say that that's one of the tough things in Bitcoin is that people... there's so many ideas and projects. Every day you hear about a new startup and a new project and a new goal that people are trying to accomplish. And some of them are successful and some of them aren't. And it's hard to tell. And we've talked about this stuff before on the show. But yeah, I don't know if it's... that's the thing.
I will say it seems like core development has picked up ever since they put together that roadmap in December. They've had a lot of upgrades to Bitcoin Core that are going to be helpful for things like the Lightning Network and scalability related stuff.
Yeah, roadmap for bigger block sizes. That was huge.
Right.
Definitely. All right.
Can you do anything to explain that to us a little bit better?
Which part?
I guess just your side of the block size thing, it getting bigger. No, I guess we covered that, didn't we?
Oh, we beat that to death. But I don't mind.
To death, but we never understood it.
Yeah,
I could kind of.
You never understood it, Tim, because you never
that might be
understand
true.
anything.
That's also true. I kind of like. I hang on to the thing, but
yeah, no, I'm
fine.
all. No,
I'm sorry.
I'm
Daniel.
all for it though. Let's hear Kyle's take
No,
on
apparently
it. It's been a couple weeks anyway, so
well,
yeah, go for it.
Just to ask him about it. What has been your experience with it? How did you hear about it first? Did you ever change your mind about it?
Yeah,
so
that's a good way. That's a good question.
I'll disguise my ignorance a little bit better this time. Daniel won't cut it out at all, so I'll still sound stupid. But yeah, answer it so I don't sound too bad.
Right. So I guess I did start covering it once XT probably was released. I mean, but the debate's been going on since back in almost forever. But it came to a head because basically what happened was Gavin and Mike Hearn couldn't get consensus from the core development team to raise the block size limit. So they went and started their own fork instead, and to increase it from 1 megabyte to 2 megabytes. So it's basically Gavin and Mike versus whatever the rest of the number of the core developers there are. I guess there's usually like 20 or something that are active generally. But I think what happened is that Gavin was highly respected as like the guy who Satoshi gave Bitcoin control over, or the control of the development.
Yeah. People kind of look at him as kind of the next coming, or not the next coming, but yeah, it's been handed off.
Like a disciple of Satoshi,
yeah.
I guess. So even though him and Mike were gravely outnumbered, at least among core developers, I guess since he was the one that Satoshi handed the code down to, his opinion held a lot of weight. But what I've come to, at least from the core development team's point of view, they just don't agree with pretty much anything Gavin is saying, and that is what the consensus is among those developers.
Well, he's in trouble a little bit more. Not in trouble, but a lot of people are questioning him now too because of what he said with I already forget his name, but the most
Craig Wright thing too.
Yeah, Craig Wright. Yeah, because he's the one who like pretty much vouched for him and said he did it right in front of him, and now everyone's like, well, now we can't really trust you on this either. Yeah,
I talk to the core devs pretty regularly, and the view that I'm generally getting from them is that this is just a more easily seen example of why they don't trust Gavin when it comes to development decisions. So a lot of the problems they had with him in the past were more technical discussions, but this is more of something that I guess everyone can see where he might have been bamboozled, as he put it.
Yeah.
So I got like $300 on the line here regarding Craig Wright, and so I need to ask: does that mean that you don't believe Gavin very much? That Wright is Satoshi?
I think it's possible that he's been scammed by or fooled by Craig Wright, but I'm not really sure. I did talk to John Matonis after the Wright story came out, and he didn't really want to go into details about how Craig Wright proved to him cryptographically that he was Satoshi. He said he would rather a advanced cryptographer go do it for themselves. So.
Okay, interesting.
It's a nice little cop out there.
Yeah, well, like I said, me and Tim got a little wager going on, so we'll see how that ends up.
I'll force everybody to just accept it if it comes down to for $300.
Tim, I meant to ask you this last episode or whenever we made the bet, but are you betting because you actually think he could be Satoshi, or are you betting just for fun and just because you got some decent odds? Like, do you actually
just for
think?
Fun.
Okay, all right.
No, I don't think he's no.
All right. Good to know.
What were the odds that you got?
I think we ended up at 3-1, 300 and 100.
Yeah, it wasn't very good at the end of it. It was like right.
I don't know.
We made the bet like the day that he came out, so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
All right. Yeah, I was definitely more open to the idea that he was Satoshi the day the news came out.
Yeah, so this is somewhat related, I guess, But I'm interested just to hear, since Daniel was saying earlier, we don't really get a chance to interview people who are writing stuff that we're covering that often. So I'd like to hear your opinion on just journalism and Bitcoin in general. This is a really vague question, but I mean, I guess there's sites like CoinDesk and Cointelegraph that are kind of big, but in general, it seems like it's still really young, and a lot of people are still getting more of their information from Reddit and stuff like that. It just, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I'm just talking about things. I'd like to know what you think about Bitcoin journalism, though.
I'd say in general it's pretty awful. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't need to be written because it's art. They're getting it from Reddit. So they're just, I mean, I see a lot of times where I'll write something for like Bitcoin Magazine and it gets to the top of our Bitcoin. And then the next day, someone will have just taken what I wrote and rewritten it and then put it on their website. And then it's on the top of our Bitcoin the next day. So there's a lot of like low quality news websites. The ones that I do read are basically the ones that I also write for. So I guess I'd have to give that disclosure. I think I don't think I've never written anything for CoinDesk, but they seem to be pretty good overall. They are moving to more of a blockchain type coverage than just Bitcoin.
Right. I think I would agree with you. I'm not sure I would say that that's really unique to Bitcoin. I would guess that it's pretty normal for people to rewrite stuff all the time. But yeah, you're right. It does happen a lot. And because
I would say the Reddit stuff is a kind of a problem too. Like,
oh man, this opens the door. This was another fun discussion we had.
You just took on Reddit.
We've probably had multiple episodes about censorship on Reddit, and it's the best. I feel like Reddit, our Bitcoin, has been dying a little bit recently, but I could be wrong. So I mean, this might not be related, but it came up, so sure, let's go there. Any thoughts on that whole debacle where they tried to censor Reddit in the forums and the health of Reddit right now?
I have kind of an unpopular opinion here.
All right.
And that I don't go for it. And that I think definitely Thamos and the Reddit team probably overreacted at first and were over censoring things too much. But you have to remember that Reddit as a platform is very easy to game. So if there's perceived manipulation on the subreddit, the way I usually put it is like some people are viewing it as censorship now, and some people are viewing it as moderation. So it's
okay.
It's hard. Like another way I put it is that I prefer our Bitcoin right now much more than our BTC. Just because everything on our BTC is conspiracy theory about Blockstream or Peter Todd or Luke-Jr. It's just there's nothing really that I want to read there.
I'll be honest. I like that you said that because I spent a lot of time trying to convince Tim and John that, like, hey, if they want to censor, like, maybe it's bad censoring, maybe it's good censoring, but they can do what they want, and it might help, it might not. And if you don't like it, go start a new platform. So to a certain extent, I'm on your side, Kyle. But I don't know.
The guys that people on RBTC really don't like me.
I don't know, Tim and John. We this is another thing that we beat to death when it was going on. Maybe not as much, but. Do you guys, I might have biased myself there when I just said that, like, oh, that's what I was saying all along, because I might not have been saying that all along. But what do you guys think?
Are you around wherever it feels like that day?
Yeah, that's another thing This is not a journalism podcast. This is an entertainment podcast.
This is it's very much one where you can jump back around with what you said. Although journalists do that a lot nowadays too.
All right.
Sort of erase stuff.
But I want to know, Tim and John, to a relative degree, was my assessment fair? Or do you still strongly disagree with Kyle? I don't know. I feel like John, I feel like you're the most anti-censorship among us.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was I agreed with you that they have the right to do that. I think my point was more that, like, I don't functionally see the difference between making a new Reddit versus trying to convince the moderators to stop censoring things, if that makes sense. Like, if you're just going to make a new one, why don't you try to convince somebody to stop doing this before you make a new one, I guess, was my thing.
Okay. Yeah, and I do remember...
I might be making that up to make myself look better in the past. You can go back and listen to see, but that's what I would say now.
Yeah, I definitely get a lot of pushback on this issue, but it's mostly from people on RBTC that don't have that are basically using a pseudonym online. I don't think I've ever had anyone attack me that is a person that I can actually identify them.
No, I don't normally do that.
Yeah, I do remember, John, that we had there was part of that beating the story to death was talking about, should we be convinced? Like, it doesn't matter if they have the right to censor. We also have the right to try to convince them not to censor. And, it's like I think all three of us were saying the same thing the whole time, but we just like to argue points. We just like to argue points that sound different, so it's
right.
More interesting.
Well, the thing I think it's just really easy to game Reddit. Like, I see it all the time on the subreddits where something that is like, I spend a lot of time on that subreddit because that's where my articles get posted and I comment in the comments and stuff too. So, like, I see stories that I know the growth to the front page was not organic at all. So I see how easy it is to manipulate. And the moderators there even did like a full report on vote manipulation from bots that were operating in the Bitcoin subreddit. So it definitely happens. So if that's the case, then you don't really have a choice but it basically becomes like the moderators become like curators almost, where they have to choose what content they're going to allow. And like I said before, even though I think their censorship or moderation, whatever you want to call it at first, was too harsh, I don't think they can necessarily be blamed for reacting that way at first. And I still prefer our Bitcoin over RBTC. RBTC is just FUD all day, and if you're reading that subreddit, you're being misinformed and misled every single day.
Interesting. Definitely good to know. Well, hey, we have two really important wrap-up questions, Kyle. But if you have any other stories, we still got 10, 20 minutes before we even get close to an hour. So do you have any other stories that have come out recently or thoughts that you want to share? Or we can wrap it up too.
Anything you want to, for our audience still paying attention after that intro, anything you particularly want to get out to anyone else who's still listening? Anything interesting you think people want to check out?
I mean...
Let's put it this way. Sorry for interrupting you.
You don't need to clarify.
But I want to know the most important stories that people should be following.
Just come and do our job for us anytime we have a news, and just tell us exactly what to do.
No. But I'm serious. Like, the most important stories that people need to be following right now because they're gonna affect Bitcoin pretty seriously. What should people be watching out for?
I think segregated witness is upgrade to Bitcoin that effectively increases the block size via soft fork. And once everybody upgrades to it, including the wallet developers and the wallet libraries, it'll basically be an upgrade from 1 megabyte to 1.7 megabytes effectively, although it's done in like a weird, hacky way. So I'm not going to go into the details because I barely understand them too.
Okay, all right.
And then that's probably the most important upgrade to ever happen to Bitcoin, probably, because it's also going to enable the Lightning Network, which can scale Bitcoin via basically a layer on top of Bitcoin where you don't lose the quote-unquote trustless nature of Bitcoin transactions, but they can basically be sent instantly and they can confirm instantly and for extremely low fees, practically zero.
Okay, that sounds awesome. I know we did one episode at least about SegWit, because I remember saying just how awesome it sounds. So if anyone's interested, go search for segregated witness.
If you want to know why it's good besides the effective block size.
And because of how it sounds.
Yeah, every great upgrade to Bitcoin sounds like it's going to bring Bitcoin to the masses and bring Jesus back from heaven or whatever. But yeah, I remember I wrote an article with Eric Lombroso about benefits besides just the effective block size increase. So if you just Google Kyle Torpey Lombroso segregated witness, it'll probably come up.
Sweet, definitely do that.
We like to try to ask all of our guests if you have a personal story you'd like to share. This can be another thing that you just have to get out to everybody, a life lesson, some kind of affirmation you got this morning whenever you were meditating or tripping or whatever you do. Or it could just be some story about when you got scammed, some funny story about a strange thing you bought with Bitcoin. Just entertain us again. Again, do our job, entertain our listeners.
I have been scammed in Bitcoin before. I think I don't know how much detail I want to go into, but I'll say it was on the Bitcoin Talk forum, and I would also say that like many other scams, it was me being greedy, and that's probably what led to me getting scammed. This was probably 2012, 2013, I think. One thing I would in terms of, I'm kind of in Bitcoin mode right now, so I don't think I have any anecdotes outside of that. But one thing I will say is that the people that try to dismiss Silk Road and all these maybe non-mainstream use cases of Bitcoin, they need to realize that those use cases are what give Bitcoin its value. And without censorship resistance, there's no point of us for any of us to be involved with this, and it'd just be PayPal. So, yeah, don't dismiss stuff like the Silk Road, I guess.
That's a good one. We also spent a lot of time talking about the Silk Road, so this is great. I mean, seriously, it's cool because we do this a lot. There's a story that comes up and we beat it to death for a month or two, or we come back to it again just a month later and everything. And, if it's important, sure. I mean, it's not a terrible thing, but it's fun to bring in a whole new take on all this stuff that we talk about all the time. And we have guests a lot, but this one, I feel like it's cool because you're really in the space and you talk to all the important people and you know all the important news, you follow all the important stories. And so, yeah, it's been good to have your take on all this. I thought this was fun.
Yeah, I don't really do a lot of podcasts. This might be the first podcast I ever did, actually. So,
nice.
But yeah, it's
there we go. Our claim to fame.
You got it first. Can you digitally sign this, and we can put it up?
Yeah, we have to cryptographically prove it. We could have had an impersonator.
Yeah, I'll make sure to sign it with my Keybase key.
No, it's cool. And send your social along with it.
All right. Well, before we close out, do you want to tell us where people can find you? Maybe Twitter, email, whatever you want to share, websites.
Sure. I think I haven't updated it in a while, but most of my stuff is just at kyletorpey.com, Torpey. And my Twitter is the same, at Kyle Torpey.
Nice.
That's pretty much where I am.
Yeah, it's a unique enough name if you didn't have that taken already.
And if you really want him to pay attention, go to r/BTC and post a bunch of conspiracy theories.
He'll be like, what the fuck?
I decided to stop going there, so
This is better
All right.
for you.
I decided to stop, and then they started mentioning my username, and I kept getting updates on my phone. So I had
All
to turn
right.
that off.
Well, you might still have a few days, all you listeners, before he remembers to turn it off. So go mention him. And upvote it with a bunch of bots and stuff. All right, Kyle
Bunch of
Torpey.
bots.
Like I said, I had a lot of fun today. Thanks so much for joining us. Maybe in a couple of months, in a year or so, we'll have you back to tell us all the more interesting things about Bitcoin, or all the important stories about how Bitcoin was destroyed and replaced by who knows what. We'd love to do that. Thanks so much for being here. All you listeners out there, get to me and btc.com for all of our past episodes. Tweet to @me and btc. Tell us what you think about the show. Tell us how much you love Kyle or how much you hate him, whatever you want. I mean, I don't know. Can you handle hate mail, Kyle?
Yeah, I get plenty
He's
of it.
on
so
Reddit, dude.
Good.
I'm used to
Good.
Used to it
Yep.
by now.
If you're on the internet publishing, you got to get used to it. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, Kyle. And come back next Thursday, everyone.
Bye-bye.